So I remember standing in the shower with as hot as I could stand it. And I was standing there so scared I couldn't breathe, and I was just crying. I was 28 years old. Rachel was 6 months old. Her sister Denise was 3 years old. Brand new baby, a toddler, and my marriage is hanging on by a thread, and there we were bankrupt. Then we'd hit bottom. I'd like to tell you I bounced back, but I didn't. I sat around, whined, and blamed everybody else for my stupidity. You ever done something dumb and blame other people? Turns out McDonald's does serve hot coffee. You're not a victim after all. Go figure. And, I think when you get in a deep place like that, you return to your roots. And I had met God on the way up when we were making money, and I got to know him on the way down. And so I was walking this out with my faith for sure, but I started thinking about the stuff I had studied even as a teenager and in my 20s when I was first getting started. And I remembered this talk that I used to listen to over and over and over again, and I hadn't listened to it in almost 10 years. But I used to listen to it over and over with a cassette recorder a long time ago. You remember cassettes? The talk was by a guy who started his career in radio in the early 1950s, late 1940s, when in radio in those days, they still had the old-fashioned radio shows. There were shows on, like the Lone Ranger was a radio show. You remember hearing those old, and they do the coconuts, hi-ho, Silver, and it's just guys with all these things in the background trying to make noises. TV was not as popular in those days. And this show was done on WGN out of Chicago, syndicated around the nation. It was called Sky King, and it was a guy in an airplane that would ride in and save the day. And the voice of Sky King was this guy with his Chris Hogan, James Earl Jones voice, right? His name was Earl Nightingale. Earl left radio and went into the insurance business. And in 1958, he had one of the most successful general agencies. He had insurance agents working for him, selling insurance all over, the Chicago area. And he's very successful. And he decided he wanted to go on a fishing trip. Earl liked to fish in Alaska, and he wanted to take a few days off and go up to Alaska and go fishing. And but he did a sales meeting for this big sales team every Monday morning. His sales manager came to him and said, Earl, we don't really want you to be gone. I mean, you're the guy that sends them out the door with a boot, and a yay rah every Monday morning. And he said, we need something. And so Earl sat down and recorded a talk, and it was put on acetone record. The old LP records that we used to have back in the day, vinyl. It's kind of come back if you're a hipster, right? Vinyl records. Well, they had a flimsy version. Any of you old enough to remember maybe even getting some of those in a cereal box or something, right? That's the acetone. It's a throwaway version. And he recorded it on acetone because he'd come out of radio and he had recording capabilities. So he recorded this talk. It's 33 minutes long. And you can hear it on YouTube. You can find it. It's one of the most popular talks ever done. It's called The Strangest Secret. And I actually have a few of the recorded copies of it on vinyl. So he recorded it and played it, and the salespeople were just blown away. And then word got out to some of the other insurance agencies, and they kept calling wanting to buy copies of this. And so they pressed it into a master and actually created vinyl. And they started selling these in about 1960, 1961. And as best we can determine, this is the very first recorded talk, not music, but recorded talk to sell over 1 million copies. So Elvis Presley, of course, is in those days, and Hound Dog selling millions and millions, right? And that kind of thing. But this sold over 1 million copies. And so you can find these on eBay to this day. They're still floating around out there all over the place. And this one was $15, which was a lot of money, 1960. The talk is absolutely phenomenal. I recommend you pull it up and listen to it. Like I said, it's only 33 minutes long. And in it, he quotes Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, a man is what he thinks about all day long. And he quotes Proverbs, which says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And Nightingale is famous for saying, what you can conceive and believe you can achieve. Earl Nightingale essentially became the father of the motivational speaker. Before there was Tony Robbins and Dave Ramsey, there was Zig Ziglar. And before there was Zig Ziglar, there was Zig and Paul Harvey and Earl Nightingale and Norman Vincent Peale filling arenas in the 60s and 70s doing motivational and sales training talks. And that's kind of where a little bit of what we've done today came from in that sense. In the talk, The Strangest Secret, he outlines basically the power of what we said this morning. You make a decision to change. And the strangest secret is simply this: you become what you think about. If you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right, Henry Ford said. Now, there's some things that you're limited on physically. I'm not gonna end up in the NBA, okay? Whether I think I can or not. And some people think they can sing and they make fools of themselves on American Idol, okay? But I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the ability to decide I'm going to win and impose my will on segments of my life. And God choosing to bless that, because he says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The scripture says that. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Any of you see the movie or read the book Unbroken about Louis Samperini? You remember that a couple years ago? He was captured. He was a track star, and he went into the army in World War II, was captured and became a Japanese prisoner of war. Does anybody remember that now? Louis Samperini? Yeah. So in the movie and in the book too, Louis was a runner, and he ended up in the 1936 Berlin Olympics, and he was a miler, and he ran a mile in 4 minutes and 21 seconds, and he medaled. And it was in 1936. By the year 1945, milers had gone from 4 minutes and 21 seconds to 4 minutes and a second. The world record in 1945 was 4 minutes and 1 second. It was widely believed in the track community and in the medical community and among philosophers that it was physically impossible for a human being to run a mile in under 4 minutes. As a matter of fact, there's a famous quote from one doctor who came out and said that if a man were to run a mile in under 4 minutes, as soon as he crossed the finish line, his heart would explode and he would die. It's anatomically impossible for this to be done. And people believed that the 4 minute mile could not be broken. So from 1945, the record sat at 4 minutes and 1 second for 9 years. No one broke the 4 minute mile. May 6th of 1954, with a stopwatch that looks kind of like this one, a guy named Roger Bannister crossed the line in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. And he broke the 4 minute mile. So Bannister breaks the 4 minute mile at 3 minutes and 59 seconds, 9 years after everybody had been telling people it couldn't be done. How long do you think his record stood? 22 days and 3 minutes and 57 seconds. The record was broken 22 more times in the next 6 years because it had been done. And once it's been done, everyone knows it can be done. Last year, a high schooler in the Nationals ran a mile in under 4 minutes. A high schooler. If you think you can, or you think you can't, you're probably right. If you think you can't run a marathon, you probably can. It might take you a while, but you can run the marathon. We reap what we sow, Henry said this morning. We live in this cause and effect world. What you plant is going to grow. A farmer doesn't plant corn and expect beans. And if you plant poison in your life, you're gonna grow poison in abundance. If you plant nothing, the government is not coming. If you plant nothing, you're gonna get weeds. Your life will be full of weeds. Mediocrity. You'll be typical. You'll be normal. You'll be just like every other person who sucks their thumb and hopes someone else is gonna ride in and save them. You get what you plant back. That's why it's so important to do stuff like you've done today. I mean, you sit here all day long and put new stuff into your spirit, new ideas into your mind. You've been elbowing each other all day long. Some of you are going home sore. You've been putting new stuff in. You got to put new stuff in because that's the only way you get the old stuff out. My wife is a runner. She gets up every morning, goes to the Y and runs with her little running herd. Little herd of women, and they run together down the bike trail. And women are weird. They can talk while they run. I can't do that. I'm at the Y. I had to quit going to the Y because I'm talking and people come up trying to talk to me. While I'm on the treadmill, I can't breathe. And they're trying to talk to me and they think I'm rude. I can't breathe. Don't bother me here. And if I'm running so slow that I can talk, I'm not running fast enough. Something's going on. So she comes home and she gets the Vitamix machine, the blender out, and starts putting things in the blender that should not be put in a blender. Healthy stuff, spinach in a blender. Ugh, nasty. And makes these healthy shakes, but it looks like toxic waste. And then she drinks it. And then she asks me a dumb question. You want some? No, I don't want any. But then she takes that glass from the toxic waste and does the strangest thing. You would think it'd take a chisel to get that glass clean. She sets it in the sink and turns on the hot water and walks away, hot water running into that glass, that clean, warm water going into that toxic waste. And she walks away and she'll go change her clothes or do something and it'll just sit there and run for a minute. And the weirdest thing happens, you've probably done this. If you put clean, warm water in the middle of a dirty mess, the warm water eventually displaces the dirty mess. It bubbles it out. And if you let that run for like 1 minute and 16 seconds, it's clean. That's the displacement theory is what I call it. You see, when clean people take up space in the culture, it doesn't leave room for the others. It displaces them. That's why it's important for people of character to take up space in the marketplace. Take up space in your home. And it's important to put new things into your spirit, your mind, your body. That's why attending church is so important because it puts new stuff into you and it displaces the garbage. And it cleans you out and keeps you clean. And if you don't do that, you just get toxic waste. And you walk around slushing and wondering why you can't win because you're not putting any new stuff in. You're not changing things. So what I'm saying is when things are mediocre over the scope of time, it's because we chose for them to be. Ouch. Well, you don't know about where I came from. Well, you don't know about where I came from. Shut up. You don't know, you got this and that. You don't know about my race. You don't know about my background. You don't know, shut up. There's people of your race, your background, your size, fat, skinny, tall, short, bald, Republican, Democrat. There's people come from every background and every origin that have made it. It's a decision. It's a decision. Is it harder for some people? Yeah, some are dumber. Is it harder for some people? Yeah, some aren't as pretty. That's why I'm not on TV and Rachel is. I'm on radio for a reason. It's harder for some people, but you just got to make up for it. You got to keep after it. Sometimes you got to scratch a little more. A little guy named Pete Maravich, they told him he could, because he's too short, he couldn't play basketball. He's in the Hall of Fame. Pistol Pete, look it up. When things are mediocre, it was a choice because we didn't do displacement. We didn't take the junk out and constantly think about what's important because you become what you think about. See, we start with our dreams, and if we stay just up in the dreams, you're just what's known as a dreamer. And if your daughter comes home and tells you that she's dating a boy and he's a dreamer, you immediately say, oh Lord, they're gonna live in the basement. You don't want a dreamer. I want people to have big dreams, but I don't want a dreamer. You see the difference? And big dreams means that I'm not gonna stay there. I'm actually gonna come out of that fog, out of that cloud of dreaming and start doing something to make those happen because you become what you think about. And so once you come down out of that, you blow some of the clouds off those dreams, you start to see a vision then. And then we start to set goals because, goals are really just dreams and visions with work clothes on, aren't they? And for your life to have a long-term positive impact, the Bible says, where there is no vision, the people perish. For your life to have long-term positive impact, you have to set goals in the different areas of your life. Zig Ziglar taught this many years ago. Brian Tracy taught this. I saw this when I was 14 years old the first time. And it absolutely is the way this conference was birthed, because it's up there. If you're gonna win, you gotta have goals in the financial arena. If you're gonna win, you gotta have goals in the spiritual side of things. If you're gonna win, you gotta have goals in the physical side. You need to have intellectual goals. Read a book, take a class, go to an event. You need to have family goals. Number 6, we need to have social goals. And number 7, career goals. Now here's the thing, none of us are gonna be perfect at any of those. All of us have got things we could work on. How many of you are like me? You see a couple of those are pretty easy for you. Please tell me you have one gift. Some of you, it's natural for you to go running. It's not natural for me to go running unless someone is chasing me. But I do it because I like food. Some of you, it's natural for you to be nurturing and social with family. It's not natural for me. I like people, but social stuff makes me want to shoot myself. I like hanging out with y'all and meeting y'all and seeing different things like this, but going to one of these parties where we're standing around going, what do you do? Oh, just shoot me. Sharon said, if we weren't married, you wouldn't have any friends. And I went, yeah, I would. I'd work with them. I'm doing something with somebody I like. This sitting around, oh my gosh. But so we set goals. You set goals in these areas, even in your weak areas. I'm admitting social's my weak one, so I set goals. How many of y'all have those friends that you know that you see them and you lie to them? You say, hey, let's get together and have dinner. You kind of meant to, but you knew you really weren't going to. But it's a lie, The California thing is let's do lunch, right, or whatever, right? No, this is a lie, okay? And some of them you just really didn't intend to, but some of them you would like to spend time with. So every year we sit down, we write down 12 sets of people, 12 couples or 12 singles that we really do want to spend time with, but if we don't do it intentionally, it will never occur. So if we don't set social goals in writing, we're not going to have any effect in that area. So we write down 12, and generally what happens is we go out to dinner with all of them in the first 3 or 4 months of the year just so I can kind of get it over with. And I got the rest of the year off. But at least we got something done in that area that we would have done nothing in if we weren't intentional in a weak area. Now, financial and career are my easy ones. I've always been able to make money. I've not always been able to keep it, but I've always been able to make money. The one call I get on the radio that I'll have to fake, that like I have empathy, it's the only time I lie on the radio just because I'm trying to be nice. And as the guy calls me up and he goes, I've been unemployed for 2 years. What are you doing? I don't understand. I intellectually get it, but I have no sympathy for that. I'd be unemployed about 30 seconds and something would be for sale on eBay. One of them kids would be up for sale right then, I can turn something into money fast. I will turn over, there's some grass that needs to be cut somewhere. I had one old boy call me on the radio. Remember when Janet Jackson did her thing on the Super Bowl and they got fined? Well, right after that, they came to us in radio and said, if you let people cuss on the radio, we're gonna give you a $500,000 fine. And I went, $500,000? I don't even see quick, put a delay on this radio show. So we put a delay in there in case somebody cussed. We had never had one for 10, 15 years, we didn't have one. The next week after we put that thing in, this guy calls up and he goes, my wife says she won't have sex with me if I don't make at least $600 a month. What do you think of that, Dave Ramsey? And I said, well, I think I'd get to work. I can't find no work. Men like you don't understand the little man. I'm like, oh, shut up. I grew up with people like you. I'll smack you. Little man can't get ahead. What is Eeyore, your spirit animal? Gee, man. You believe that crap? That's the only thing wrong with you. I said, look out your window. He said, why? Look out your window. All right, I'm looking. You see any grass? Yeah, go cut some. He's like, you no good, blankety, blank, 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 blankety. You're just like her, blankety, blank, blank, blank. 10 seconds is an eternity. So I let him go on for a minute and I went, hey, fool, none of that'll make the air. Sorry, see ya. And by the time all y'all heard was me grass cut and him start, and the next thing you heard me was me go, wasn't that interesting? That 10-second delay is magical. But you need a career and financial goals are easy for me. So you need to set them in each of these areas. Goals that work have to be 5 things. Number 1, they must be specific. And number 2, they must be measurable. I want to lose weight. Well, it's measurable, but that's not specific. You won't be able to do it. I want to lose 30 pounds. Ding! Measurable, specific. We got the first 2 guidelines met, right? I want to make more money. You never will. I want to make $12,000 more next year. Ding! We have a measurable and a specific goal. You see the difference? When people speak in generalities about their goals, they don't have goals, they have dreams. In order for them to be specific and measurable is when you start to break it down and you start to immediately ask yourself, what has to be true for me to achieve this? The third thing that makes the magic happen is you put a time limit on it. I want to lose 30 pounds. When and how many times? Over the next 40 years? Okay, we can break that down. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to lose 30 pounds in 3 months. How many pounds a month? How many pounds a week? 2.5. Okay? How do you lose weight? Exercise more, eat less. Increase the water intake, stop the bread and the sugar. Ding, you don't even need Oprah. It just happened, didn't it? Immediately you start asking yourself, I want to lose 2.5 pounds a week, 10 pounds a month, so I'll lose 30 pounds in 90 days. See, it's specific, it's measurable, it has a time limit, the math unfolds, 6th grade long division kicks in, and you immediately can't keep yourself from asking, what has to be true for me to do this? Increase my exercise, my aerobic activity, 30 minutes of sweat a day. And it's really not, we all know the math. We all know the formula on this. It's the breads and the sugars. I know what it is. It ain't the steak that's killing me. Good. It's those dadgum hot Krispy Kreme donuts. You know, they're the sugar and the bread and sin in a box. It's just, right? I know what it is. I know what has to be true for me to hit that goal. I want to make $12,000 more this year. What is that? How much a month? $1,000 a month. How much more a week? $250 a week. I had a guy come in, he goes, I want to make $100,000 this year. One of my sales guys, I went, that's easy. That's $8,300 a month. And so that's about $2,100 a week. You're on a 10% commission. So you need to sell about $21,000. And your average ticket is about $1,000 in your area. So you got to make 21 sales a week. Oh, and by the way, your close ratio is this. And so we can back into this many phone calls is what $100,000 a year equals. It's really easy. You instantly do it. Because you start asking yourself, what activities do I have to engage in to hit my goal? If you want to graduate from college in 4 years, you get the catalog out and you find out which classes you freaking need to take. We sat down in the dadgum orientation, one of my kids in the college is up there going, well, we have a high graduation rate, 58% of our students graduate. Well, what if you get a 58 in one of your classes? Is that passing? That's horrible. That means 42% aren't graduating, and they all got student loans too. And this time, no degree. Oh, and a bunch of our kids graduate in 5 years. And so I wrote across my daughter's thing in big bold letters while this woman's talking, so have a freaking plan. It's not a big deal. You need a deadline. As soon as you put a time certain on it, the division starts happening and you start asking yourself the question, what has to be true for this to occur? The fourth thing is your goals must be your goals, not your mama's. My wife wants me to lose weight. You won't. I know. I came home from a cruise last summer. Sharon and I went on this really nice cruise. Unbelievable. Food was, oh man. Oh, my mouth's watering right now. And I have been working a lot, which means I'm on the road. When I'm on the road, I get fat. And then we went on this cruise and I got fatter. And we all know that, remember that character in Star Wars, Jabba the Hutt? And I came home and I looked in the mirror last summer and there was Jabba looking at me. I said, hey, fat boy. And Shit. And so I decided to change. And that was 36 pounds ago. So that's why I'm obsessing up here about food. But you got to decide, don't you? You got to decide. It's not magic. We know what to do. How are you going to make more money? You got to make more calls. You got to change your career. You got to do something. What has to be true? And my wife wanted me to lose weight. Didn't work. It was when I decided I wanted to lose weight. If your mama wanted you to be a dentist, I don't want to be your patient. If your daddy wants you to be a preacher, I don't want to go to your church. Unless they're talking about your heavenly daddy. You're talking about God, that's okay. But if your father, I'm a preacher because my father always went, you'll be awful. They need to be your goals. You need to own them down in here. And then they're real. And the last thing is, and this is the one that nobody does, they have to be in writing. Has to be in writing. When you write it down, something happens. The Bible says in Habakkuk, write the vision and make it plain. So this is my prayer journal from 1993. I used to sit down and type everything out because I can't read my own writing later. And so I would write down and I would type out my prayer time and I would type out my goals. And I had been studying that personal finance is not working when people just get head knowledge, they don't change. That it's also a behavior problem. Personal finance, we've decided, is 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge. And so I was sitting with the 12-step people learning from them. I was going to all these psych people learning about the power of group. What is the most powerful way to change behavior? And by the way, 12-step has one of the best records of changing behavior of anybody when it comes to this horrible thing of addiction that people go through. And so I was studying those guys, I'm reading this stuff, I'm hanging out with these guys, and of course I know the financial parts of it, and I know the techniques and all this, I just gotta get people to do them. And so I wrote this down in my prayer journal, July 1993, several things in here, but there's tiny little number 2 Roman numeral. All it says is high touch support group concept seminar / counseling / small group. That's the only words written on here. And then the next several pages, I wrote down what I was going to do, that's July, in August, September, and October to cause those things to happen that I'd written down as my goals. In March of 1994, not quite a year later, I stood in front of a room with an overhead projector and a bad suit, set the room for 135 people to teach a class called Life After Debt, advertised it on my little radio show that 6 people listened to. And I decided the room was going to be full because so many people needed to get out of debt and learn how to handle money. And I was so excited. And I just knew God had given me this dream and I was ready to go. And I stood in there and I gave a free night to come out and learn about this new class called Life After Debt. 4 families came. 4 families. There were 8 people there. 7 people. One of them didn't even bring his wife. I sold 3 of them. So my sales ratio was good. Did it again the next week, did it again the next week, did it again the next week. It was $569 to go through a class that lasted 26 weeks. Nowadays, the class is 9 weeks and it's $89. And there's a lot of work in between 1994 and today. But that class is now called Financial Peace University. And almost 5 million people have been through it in 50,000 churches. And when I run into one of you out in the hallway, one of the ladies back here serving the food and stuff, and she came over, she put her hand up here and she said, Financial Peace University changed my life, thank you. I can't always help but get my throat a little bit tight and I think about that little bitty thing I wrote down there as a goal. Support group concept, seminar, and then a bad overhead projector and a bad suit. And we went and did something about our life. And what has occurred. Now, it's not been an easy run, and there's certainly a lot of gaps in that story, but that's the beginning of the story and the current version of the story. That's a little spooky, y'all. Write it down. Write it down. It's a big deal. Yeah, Dave, but if we try this, it might not work. You ever thought of that? I've thought of that. I could go do this, but it might not work. Yeah, it might not. I could have got up there and it wouldn't have worked. I've done a bunch of stuff in business since then that didn't work. I've tried all kinds of things that didn't work. I don't have time to tell you all of them. One of these days I'm gonna write a book, the things that didn't work. It'll be a really thick book, you know? Seth Godin says, I define anxiety as experiencing failure before it occurs. Winston Churchill said, success is stumbling from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. You see, really, I've talked to all these successful people in ministry and business, in sports, and you talk to them, and you know what all of them are? They're all colossal failures. They have failed so many times. The only difference is they're standing on all their failures instead of laying under them. The gleaming mountain of success is actually a pile of trash. It's all the things you tried that didn't work and you're standing on them. You remember the old story of Edison being interviewed by a reporter who said, you've tried 9,000 ways to invent the light bulb. Aren't you disillusioned? You failed 9,000 times. And he says, no, I have not failed. I've been experimenting. I have found 9,000 ways that the light bulb will not work. When you do something wrong, look at it as an experiment. That didn't work. Let's do this. That doesn't work. Let's do this. I mean, think of a quarterback that gets into the game and steps back and throws an interception. First play of the game, what are you gonna do? Sit down? No. I have two wonderful son-in-laws. They're absolutely fabulous. My girl's married so good. I used to say we hit the son-in-law lottery, and then I realized, no, we taught them to pick well. Luck had nothing to do with it. Because, I mean, we had a few jerks come around and I intercepted. You imagine coming to my house, pick up my daughter honking your horn? You better be delivering a pizza. Roll your little butt in here, boy. We're gonna talk a minute. I'll be cleaning my gun when you get home. You know the story, right? And you know, my girls say, Daddy, the boys in the youth group are scared of you. Good. Keeps away two things you don't want, honey. Wussies and jerks. If you marry either one of those, you got a long life. And so they married men, they're good men. And my oldest daughter, Denise, is married to a man named Bill Whittemore. Absolutely fabulous guy. He's a high school football coach. He's a big football star in our area. And he went off and ended up playing for Kansas, took him the Tangerine Bowl. It's on ESPN this week on the Classic Channel. And he got beat in the Tangerine Bowl. The quarterback on the other side was Phillip Rivers. So this is Bill's career. So Bill took him bowl games. So he's a big hero in Kansas, right? And right before he went to Kansas, he was at a junior college, and his dad, Bill Sr., we were at dinner having hamburgers over at their house, and Bill Sr.'s telling me the story on Bill. Bill never told me this story. And then I said, this is the funniest thing I've ever heard. I got to be able to tell this story. And I went to Bill and asked him. He said, yeah, you can tell it. It's a true story. So he's in junior college. The newspaper, they got this star quarterback coming to town. This was before Kansas. And his first game at the junior college, new quarterback's on the front page of the newspaper. He's the stud. He's going to take them all. You know, they're excited about their recruit, right? We got the guy. Goes into the game. They kick off. They get the ball the first play, right? So Bill walks out there. He's all bad, you know. Junior college, he's looking around. Takes a snap, 3 steps back. Throws across the middle on a slant route. Defensive end picks him off. Interception. Runs it back for a touchdown. He's been in the game 37 seconds. The other team's already scored on him. He goes over the sideline. These quarterbacks, you know, coach comes over. It's okay, Bill. You kind of got to get ready, buddy. We're getting the ball right back. So, you know, come on. Chin up here, buddy. Stout fella, right? And so they kick off. Bill goes back in the game. That means a minute, 17 seconds off the clock at this point, right? Brand new game. Bill steps back. I kid you not. He throws a different defensive end, picks it off, and runs it back. Another pick six. 2 plays, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns for the other team. He goes to the sideline. What are you going to say if you're the coach? This is my new guy. I'm just going to put a bullet in this horse. He's dead. You know, I mean, what are you going to say to this guy, right? So Coach, this is a true story. This is what Bill's dad. I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. Coach comes over to Bill and he goes, Bill, we're getting the ball right back. When you go in and you get the ball, I want you to take 3 steps back. I want you to look for a player on the other team. And I want you to throw them the ball in such a way that they can run it back and get 3 pick sixes right in a row. Because that way, Bill, you'll break my personal record. It's an experiment, isn't it? And of course, he went back in. And the true story is they did turn around. He did win the game. He got past his jitters, obviously, and figured out where not to throw the ball. But don't you know we're all that way? We all throw interceptions. And you don't have the option sometimes of sitting on the bench after you throw an interception. You got kids to feed. You got a house payment to make. You got to get back up sometimes even when you don't feel like it, right? Sometimes you do something stupid and it leaves a mark on you, on your family, on your life, and you got to get back up anyway, don't you? You keep going. You keep going. You keep going. Even though we might fail, we're going to do it. We're going to try it anyway because you become what you think about. Jesus said it this way, I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly.